Hello, folks. So today we are going to talk about ADHD in relationships. So, how ADHD impacts communication, connection, conflict, and intimacy, and how to build relationships that thrive. So, um, why ADHD shows up strongly in relationships? Well, because ADHD impacts everything that we do. It's located in our minds, and so obviously that's the lens through which we view and interact with the world, and so therefore that is how we um, interact with people. So it's not just about focus; it's emotions, memory, sensory load, daily routines, executive functioning, emotional dysregulation, all of these things, and these all kind of impact our communication, conflict, connection. So part of it too is also that a lot of ADHDers carry shame from being misunderstood, um, from being misdiagnosed, all of these pieces. So this can lead to defensiveness or people pleasing or not having boundaries, you know, all of these things. And unfortunately, partners can often misinterpret ADHD symptoms as disinterest when they're actually, neurodevelopmental barriers, or they can perceive it as abuse or as narcissistic behavior. Um, because the attraction, the pulling away, is also part of it. So, what are some common ADHD traits that impact relationships? And these are again just some. So, if you can think of others, please feel free to leave a comment, and I will be happy to respond. So one is time blindness. So forgetting plans or losing track of time. This can lead to a lot of misunderstandings, or thinking something will take longer than it does, or that something won't take as long as it does. Working memory issues. So struggling to remember tasks, requests, conversations, um, often looked at as, you know, um, well, if you really cared, you would remember. Or if you really cared, you would do this. Emotional dysregulation. So um, our emotions can spike very fast, very intensely. Um, in the honeymoon phase, it can be really, really intense. And if you're not used to being with a neurodivergent person, it can feel overwhelming. Or the vice versa is that is, what you expect out of a relationship. And then when that intensity dies down, there can be questionings of, on both sides of, do I really love this person? Am I as attracted to them as I thought I was? Is there something wrong with the relationship? Another one is difficulty transitioning. So switching tasks or shifting attention can feel very abrupt or jarring. And when that happens, the neurodivergent or non-ADHD partner can be frustrated. So like, well, I just asked you to kind of do this one small thing. Like, why are you flipping out, or why is this so hard? Or ask you to do something. You're like, yeah, I'll do it in a few minutes. And then time goes by and you're like, it hasn't been done. What's going on? There's all of these things, right? Sensory sensitivity. So certain sounds, touch, environments can cause overwhelm for the neurodivergent person. So, going to events can be a really big kind of sensory overload situation. Going to my daughter's school events, I go because I want to support her, but they are very loud. There's a lot of people. It's very crowded. There's people everywhere. Just unexpected yelling and screaming because they're kids. And I go because I want to support her, but it is a very, very kind of sensorily overwhelming experience. And so, I go with the wife to support our child, but I'm not really interacting. I'm not really, I'm kind of just very withdrawn because I'm trying to protect myself. And if people aren't aware that that's what you're doing, it can come off as disinterested or as, I don't want to be here. Yeah, kind of don't, but not because I don't care about my child or my partner, but because the environment is so overwhelming. Um, Another thing is task paralysis. So wanting to help, but genuinely, unable to start, or not knowing where to start, or being so overwhelmed with what to do that it's just you shut down because you're like, well, I know what needs to be done, but it's so much, I don't know where to start. right? And so sometimes it can, again, come off as, well, I don't care, or you do it. And often, can be seen as, well, putting the mental load on your partner, which, fair enough. I mean, you are basically doing that, but it's not because you don't care, or you think, well, this is more for you and not for me. It's, I genuinely don't know what to do or where to start. I'm so overloaded. There are ways to address that. There are things that you can do. There are apps, there's strategies, there's all different things. But if you're not aware of it, or even if you are, but sometimes you're not putting those things into place, or sometimes even though you put those things into place, they still aren't helping. It can be really frustrating for the non-ADHD partner, or even if your partner does have ADHD, but just maybe that's not an area that they struggle with. And this is something that I think a lot of people don't understand is, even if you have ADHD and you're with a partner that has ADHD, or even another type of neurodivergence, there is often a lot of understanding of the struggles, but your neurodivergences aren't all going to line up. It's not like, well, you start here and you go here, like, you have the line. Like, that's not a linear line. That's not how neurodivergence works. It's more kind of there's the wheel, and some areas you are okay in, other areas you're not, and they're not always going to line up perfectly, right? So just something to think about. So here's how ADHD symptoms are often misunderstood. This is just a little bit. This is not a lot. This is just a few. But forgetfulness is seen as not caring. Well, if you cared, you would remember. No, that is not how the ADHD brain works at all. We do not run on importance. For us, it is urgency. So there's an acronym in CUP. It's interest, novelty. I forget what the C is. You know what? I'm going to Google it because this is going to drive me nuts. Right. Interest, novelty, challenge, urgency, and passion. And again, something can be very important, but not necessarily doesn't kind of strike any of those other elements, which makes it, can be hard to remember. Task avoidance is often mistaken for laziness. And I really, really don't like the term lazy, because laziness does not exist. There's a really great book called Laziness Does Not Exist by author Devin Price, and they are absolutely fantastic. They also wrote Unmasking Autism, which was kind of fundamental in my journey of discovering that I was also autistic as well as ADHD. And in it, they talk a lot about how, laziness doesn't actually exist, that human beings are intrinsically want to do things, that a lot of the reasons that we don't are because of societal reasons, environmental, capitalism, kind of that Western capitalist patriarchal, kind of mindset of the hustle and grind culture, especially kind of in the Western world. And that, when people aren't in that state, that, we do want to do stuff, just maybe not that would, that isn't considered productive or doesn't, benefit capitalism, which doesn't mean it's not worthy, it's not worthwhile. It's definitely not lazy though, because most people, if you let them have, not have to do anything for like 6 months and all of their needs were met, by around 2 or 3 months in, they're probably going to start going squirrely because they want something to do, right? We're not meant to just sit on our ass. Again, are there some people? Sure. Is it the majority? No. Emotional intensity can often look like or be perceived as overreacting, too sensitive, too much, too over the top. It's not. As ADHDers, we tend to have very heightened emotions. It's, again, we're a condition of extremes. It's either we really don't give a shit, doesn't bother us, whatever, do whatever we want, to like just super feeling the emotion. Does not tend to be a whole lot of mid-range. And for those that aren't used to it or don't know what it looks like, it can be overwhelming. I mean, it can be overwhelming for us, let alone, and we know kind of what's going on emotionally wise. Imagine, having somebody that doesn't kind of have that internal dialogue and how they're perceiving it. That is a lot. right? And so sometimes it's helpful to kind of have those conversations. Um, Hyperfocus can seem like ignoring your partner, right? Until it's directed at them. There's both the good and the bad about that. Um, and it's like, well, how can you focus on this thing for so long and then, not pay attention to me? And again, kind of interest, novelty, challenge, urgency, passion, which you can have with your partner, and you should, but not all the time, right? And so sometimes we get really focused on something and we don't even consider kind of the people around us, right? Um, and forgetfulness isn't just in terms of like um, doing stuff, but it's also in terms of like people around us in our lives. So one of the big things is like, I've been accused of this, is I will go out, I'll buy something, or I'll do something, I'll come home, and it's like, well, you didn't get something for me, or you didn't reach out, and it's like, not because I don't care and I don't think of you and I don't want stuff for you, but if you're not there with me, if I don't see something that immediately was like, ooh, this is, reminds me of you, it's not necessarily going to kind of trigger the thought of like, I should get something for you. And again, not because I don't care, but it's kind of like out of sight, out of mind. Something has to bring you to mind for me. You're not going to just kind of be present in my mind. And again, not because I don't like you or care about you. It's just you're not present. So another thing is impulsivity can be seen as recklessness or disregard, which is, especially financially, can be really, really hard. That kind of goes back to, like, oh, I got this thing, and it's like, well, sure, you got it for you, but why did you only think about yourself, right? Communication challenges. And these are some big ones. Interrupting unintentionally due to excitement or fear of forgetting a thought. I do this constantly. Monologuing, or somebody's saying something, you're just so like, oh yeah, you just want to jump in. Or it's like, well, if I don't say something now, I'm going to forget what my thought is. And then when it comes around to my turn to talk, it's like, shit, what was it I was going to say? So something I've done for that. And again, you should speak to your partner or kind of people in your life and let them know that you're going to do this. But sometimes when somebody's talking and I'm like, oh, there's something I want to say, sometimes I'll be like, hey, just hold on a second. We'll just kind of like write something down or like put something really quick into my phone just to help me to remember what it is I wanted to say. Or if I'm having a discussion of like things that need to be done, I'll be like, hey, hold on, can I just put it in as you go? Because I'm not going to remember everything kind of at the end of the conversation. Going off on tangents or losing the thread mid sentence. God, this happens all the time, which is so frustrating. It can lead to some really great places, kind of going off on tangents. But it can also be frustrating for like, hey, we're trying to talk about this thing, and it's you end up way over here, right? Or sometimes talking and literally just be like, wait a minute, what was I just talking about? And this happens literally mid-sentence, which is just how you were talking about it, and then just whoop, and you're just like, what? So, difficulty maintaining eye contact or staying still in conversation. My daughter is notorious for this. She will walk around or kind of like be in all these different positions. And I understand why she does it, but it's really frustrating for me. And because I am coming from a very neurotypical place, because that's how I was raised. To be, if you're moving around, if you're kind of like shifting, if you're then you're not really paying attention, which is not true. And that kind of helps her to stay grounded and to be able to be present in the conversation. And I have to kind of push back against that rhetoric in my head, because that's how I was raised. And I know that it's not true, because I struggle. I mean, I fidget constantly. I mean, right now, I have this. I can turn a fidget into anything into a fidget. Yeah, just things like that. Avoiding difficult conversations out of fear of rejection or emotional overwhelm. So RSD is huge. So I've spoken about this before. Rejection sensitive dysphoria. Just not wanting to bring up conversation, to have a hard conversation for fear of how it's going to be perceived or received, or how, they're going to interact with you. Really, it's fear-based. Or conversely, being afraid of, like, I don't want to talk about this because I know if I do, I'll get really, really emotionally overwhelmed, and then I'll be accused of, either not being able to control myself, or manipulating the conversation, or manipulating their emotions, or becoming angry. There's all sorts of things. Forgetting details from past talks often leads to your partner feeling unheard. It's not that, we didn't hear you. It's not that we don't care. Honestly, I don't know an ADHDer who isn't frustrated with their memory. It sucks. So if we forget something, it doesn't mean that we don't care. We weren't paying attention. We probably were trying very, very hard. And sometimes it's just like, hey, listen, we spoke about this before, and if you don't remember, like, that's okay. Let me just kind of do a quick summation. But when somebody says something, you're like, hey, I really don't remember that. I'm really sorry. Taking ownership on both sides. So here are some conflict patterns in ADHD relationships. Shutdowns, when conversations feel intense or overwhelming. Defensiveness, which can often be triggered by years of criticism or feeling misunderstood, both in the relationship and just kind of in their life, growing up, friends, family, all these things. Over-explaining to avoid disappointing someone, or fear of not having what you're saying to be understood, because we're so often misunderstood that we over-explain in an attempt to be like, if I can just find the right words, I can get them to understand what I'm trying to say, and avoid all this miscommunication, misunderstanding. Emotional flooding. So as I was saying before, kind of like the emotional overwhelm. Sometimes, yes, we shut down, but sometimes we also can lead us to tears or anger, including kind of withdrawal, or kind of being explosive. So instead of a shutdown, it kind of turns into a meltdown, right? So rather than kind of internal, it's external. And conflict avoidance, right? For, again, a variety of reasons. So RSD, sensory overload, all these different things. So we've talked a lot about kind of like the challenges and the deficits, but what are some strengths that ADHD can bring into a relationship? So, and again, these are just a few. If you have any more, please leave them in the comments. I'd love to continue this discussion. Deep empathy and passion for our loved ones. When we love deeply, which has its pros and cons. Often creativity and problem solving and emotional expression. So the ability to think outside the box, try different things. We often are extremely loyal and very strong protective instincts. And I don't know if that's necessarily inherent to ADHD, or rather just kind of what we've experienced through having ADHD, and how that has shaped kind of our personalities or our behaviors. The ability to bring humor, novelty, and spontaneity, right? That impulsivity, which can be so frustrating, can also really rejuvenate and and help have that the growth and the reconnection of a relationship, right? The hyperfocus of love. So when attention locks in, the connection can feel incredibly strong. And yes, there's highs and lows of that. And when it goes away, it feel like it's just all the love and affection has been pulled out. So it's something to kind of keep in mind. If you have these highs and lows, to kind of talk about it and to see, like, you understand you can't always have those highs, but you shouldn't always have those lows either, right? So here are some strategies. Here are some strategies for healthier ADHD relationships. So for the neurodivergent partner, using external supports, not using a partner as kind of an external brain, but rather things like calendars, reminders, shared apps. The wife and I use something called Skylight, which is really helpful to kind of be able to have all of our calendars in one place, and then also to do like lists and chores and things like that for the family, which has been great. Asking for clarity when instructions feel vague. You're not trying to be argumentative. You're just trying to understand. Communicate needs before burnout hits, or be proactive in addressing concerns instead of trying to do it after the fact, after you've kind of had the blow up. Take breaks during conflict to regulate sensory and emotional overload. And again, not saying like walking out, but saying, hey, I need a break. I'm going to go for a walk. I used to, when I get really overloaded, I would just go for a walk and my wife would be like, where the hell are you? What's going on? So now if I'm feeling overwhelmed, if I'm dealing with the kid, it's driving me absolutely insane, and I really I need to leave, or I'm going to say or do something that I'm going to regret, I will either tell my wife or I'll text her, hey, I'm going for a walk. I will let you know when I'm back. Right? So practice saying things like, I need a moment. I want to hear you, but my brain is overloaded, or I can't handle this right now. I need to leave. So for the neurotypical partner, or possibly the neurodivergent partner that maybe has their challenges in different areas, try to avoid interpreting ADHD symptoms as inattention or as not caring, or kind of like attributing it to personality and choice when often it's not. Using gentle, direct communication instead of hints or implications or being subtle does not work with us. Breaking tasks into concrete steps, avoiding kind of multi-layered instructions. This is something I'm guilty of doing with my child. I will ask her to do like 3 things, and then she gets overloaded. So now I've had to kind of try and train myself to be like, ask her 1 thing at a time. It can feel frustrating because it's like, oh my God, this is so slow. But ultimately, it actually ends up saving time because you're not having to rego, and then having to deal with the meltdown. So it's just, if you can kind of do it 1 step at a time, it actually does save you time in the long run, right? Really trying to stay away, and this is for everyone, really trying to stay away from kind of definitive all or nothing statement or absolute. So like, you always or never, saying like, when you blank, I feel blank, or you often do this, or I've noticed this. So recognizing that emotional sensitivity reassurance goes a long way. So if somebody is having really big feelings, acknowledging that, being like, yeah, this looks really hard, or yeah, I see how much this is affecting you. Like, I'm really sorry that you're going through this. Like, that's hard. So for both partners, trying to create predictable routines together, where possible, and again, it depends on your relationship, but if you can use humor to diffuse the tension without necessarily using it as a deflection, or as a way to not address the issue. Celebrating tiny wins, they matter. Thing is, those really, really big wins that we get are amazing. They are. Like, when I graduated my MSW, that was amazing. The thing is, I wouldn't have had that if I hadn't taken and passed tests, if I hadn't hit in assignments. Those were all small wins. And yeah, individually, it doesn't seem like much, but when you add them up, that is what allowed me to have the big win of graduating. Right? So celebrate the small wins. They matter. Build in recovery time after social or sensory heavy days or events. And remember, it's the 2 of you versus the problem, not each other. It's not trying to win against your partner. If one person wins, you both lose. Ultimately, the relationship loses. Okay? So ADHD is or doesn't have to be a relationship barrier. It is a relationship style that needs understanding, compassion, and structure. When partners learn how ADHD brains work, connection deepens, conflict softens, and everyone feels safer. So thank you for joining us. And if you want to learn more, I encourage you to go back and watch my other videos. We have on pretty much all of the socials, and would love to hear from you, whether it's here or anywhere else. And if you are looking for counseling around neurodivergence and trauma, if you are in London, we'd love to see you in person. And we also have virtual therapy across Ontario. And we are bringing on a restorative massage therapist, and he will be starting in December. So you can come to the office. He will be offering same day availability starting December 1st. So would love to see you. Thank you much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.